Hey there and welcome to my new video. As always, you can call me Mikhail or Michael. And before I start this video, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. I really appreciate your generosity, so thank you friends and have a blessed day. Now today's video I will start with the town of Novomikhailivka, which all throughout the last few weeks was actively stormed by the Russian forces. Just like yesterday, today Russians were able to advance here yet again. It happened right in the center of the village. And with those territories falling in under Russian control within the last 24 hours, Russian forces officially reached and captured the center of the village. They were also able to secure their control over this milk factory, ensuring that all further Ukrainian counterattacks in attempt to recapture it will be unsuccessful. As you can see, Russians are getting closer and closer to the control of half of this village, with Ukrainian counterattacks proving extremely ineffective as they are unable not only to repel, but also stop Russian advance. With it, as you can see, Russians are continuously advancing every day. Then from Novomikhailivka, let's go to the north and discuss situation in Georgievka village, where Russians were able to advance yet again in the direction of the village center and capture these territories within the last 24 hours, in addition to other portions of the village which they were able to capture a few days ago. With those territorial gains, as you can see, they are now able to storm Georgievka proper, finally clearing this narrow portion of the village, which of course limited their offensive capabilities to just this small sector. Now they gained some operational freedom, as they will be able to attack to the flank and rear of Ukrainian formations fighting in this portion of the village, as well as attack directly in the direction of the center and Ukrainian strongholds located along these forest lines, as well as this industrial complex. Judging by the fact that Russians advance here almost daily, we can safely assume that Ukrainians are unable to stop Russian advance despite constant efforts and never-ending series of counterattacks. With the situation here developing as it is, we can expect Russians reach the center of the village in a few days. And with it, we can start the final countdown of the battle for Georgievka. Then from here let's continue going to the north and stop at Krasnogorovka. As you can see, it is yet another big town which Russians have started to storm within the last few weeks, but the battle here was especially heavy. Initially, of course, Russians were able to reach the outskirts and establish several footholds. But then Ukrainians reinforced their formations here with 3rd Assault Brigade, also known as Azov Battalion, and as a result of successful counterattacks, they were able to repel Russian forces and forced Russians to retreat behind better suitable positions. Not long time after, Russians restarted their offensive operations in the direction of the village and yet again entered and established a bridgehead, and today they were able to successfully expand it, with those territories coming in under Russian control. As you can see, there is currently a heavy battle ongoing for this general portion of the Krasnogorovka town. It is fairly isolated thanks to this massive rail line that goes through Krasnogorovka itself, and Ukrainians are doing everything in their power to stop Russians here before Russians are also able to cross the rail line and storm Krasnogorovka proper. So as of right now, the heaviest of battles is ongoing here, with Russians slowly coming on top. Like I said in my previous video, it seems that Ukrainians severely depleted their reserves and were only able to stop Russians for about a week or two. But after sustaining massive losses in fruitless and ineffective counterattacks, Russians regained cohesion and attacked with new force. In support of Russian efforts in Krasnogorovka, Russians also launched attack along this rail line, and as a result of that were able to advance towards Krasnogorovka itself, with those territories coming in under Russian control. As you can see here, Russians are advancing along the forest lines and along the rail line in the direction of the train station, right to the flank and rear of Ukrainian formations covering the entire right flank of Krasnogorovka defense. And with its fall, we might expect Russians not only to clear this portion of the town relatively quickly, but actually go on the attack towards Krasnogorovka proper and initiate the battle in its eastern outskirts. Now, not only do I want to know your opinion on Krasnogorovka, whether Ukrainians will be able to keep up with Russian advance, how effective the 3rd Special Assault Brigade will be in this situation, and while you're at it, please consider supporting this video if you liked it so far. A like, comment, and of course a subscription will be a great help. Thank you for considering it, and let's move on. From Krasnogorovka, let's move to Bakhmut, skipping Avdiivka, as there are no interesting reports as of right now, and it seems that within the last 24 hours, Russians launched massive assaults all across the front, within Bogdanivka and to its both flanks, within Ivanivsky and to its both flanks as well, and of course in the direction of Klishchiivka. And although it seems that Ukrainians were able to repel Russian attacks in the direction of Klishchiivka, they were unable to do so in Ivanivsky and Bogdanivka, where as a result of successful storming operations, Russians took control over these territories, thus finishing the fight for the control over Tereshkova Street, which is located dead in the center of the village. And as you can see, Russians are now in full control of the center, currently fighting for Voronezhska Street, storming buildings attached to it as I record this video. As the battle in Ivanivsky continues, and both Russians and Ukrainians are engaging in heavy street-to-street battles, Russian rocket artillery strike upon Ukrainian flank and rear in attempt to stop Ukrainian formations from reinforcing their brethren currently engaged in the fighting in the center of the village. Here you can see that happening on your screen. As you can see, Russians are using combined arm tactics in order to effectively attack within densely built sections of the front line and do everything in their power to destroy as much Ukrainian formations as possible before they are able to enter the battlefield. As you can see, slowly but surely, village of Ivanivsky will fall to the Russians. Now, what is important to note is that with the fall of Ivanivsky, the entire southern flank of Ukrainian forces here may crumble, and with continuous Russian attacks restarting in the direction of Klishchiivka, we might expect more Russian advances all across this front, as Ukrainians will have hard time reinforcing this entire front. Again, it seems that they have ran out of reserves, and Russians regained full initiative here. Then from Ivanivsky, let's discuss situation in Bogdanivka, where two Russian forces were able to advance not only within the village itself, but also on its southern outskirts. And here you can see exactly how much territories that was. For a long time, this village was contested, with both Russians and Ukrainians continuously launching counterattacks in attempt to gain full control over the village. At some point, Ukrainians were able to push Russians at the very outskirts of Bogdanivka, but since then, Russians were continuously attacking and regaining control of the village. Then from here, let's move all the way to the Kupiansk front line and discuss situation around Sinikivka village. Due to heavy fighting, Russian forces decided to retreat from the northern portions of the village back into this forest, as it will provide them with better cover, and so that they wouldn't have to be forced to sit and wait for Ukrainian artillery and aviation to strike them. But as they've done so, they were able to advance along this road and capture this small portion of the road, with some force lines adjacent to it, advancing in the general direction of this intersection, which will give them control over these three roads and greatly increase their offensive capabilities in this area. This intersection will also help control Sinikivka village itself, which again for right now, Russians decided to abandon and leave within the gray zone. With this I end today's video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. If it was, please consider supporting it by any means you consider necessary. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day and always remember, Russia will be free and great.